This is Internet Marketing.
Hello, Kelvin Newman here, and welcome to the Internet Marketing Podcast. We've got a slightly different change of format coming up over the next few weeks. Recently, we had the Brighton SEO event, and one of the popular elements of the program there are panel discussions, where we get groups of people together to have live discussions around interesting topics around search and more broadly digital marketing. So we've decided to take a few of those panels and use them as episodes for the Internet Marketing Podcast, so you can get a bit of a sense of what those panels are like at Brighton SEO. So yeah, we've got one of those coming up. I hope you really enjoy it.
Hello and welcome to, I think, what is your potential second to last talk of the day, if you're staying for Big Rory at the end. You've obviously got the pleasure of our lovely company today. We've got the lovely Danielle to my left. We were actually just chatting then, saying about are we going to read the bio word for word, or are we going to ad-lib and be like, hey, she's sassy, she knows a lot about social media. She's actually the marketing manager for Revenue Growth Agency, and the biggest thing that I learned from her this morning is that she is an avid Star Wars fan. So all I would say is just bear in mind throughout this session, if you do have opportunities to have questions, which you will do, we'll break twice for them, maybe throw in a few Star Wars questions for her. She'll get excited.
I will. I can't guarantee I'll know the answer.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
well, she's
really
Doom,
excited.
whatever that is. So there you go. Right, so that's Danielle. She knows lots about social media. We've got Sarah to my right. So she is Facebook and LinkedIn ads specialist. You may have seen her talk yesterday. It was sensational. A lot of cats, a lot of ice cream, and some very, very questionable choices around ketchup and where it's placed. But she does have a shit ton of experience with Facebook ad spend, 7-figure ad spend to be precise, under 10 years, worked for some excellent companies. So Facebook ad testing for things like Ad Espresso, Blitzmetrics, Copy Hackers, Adweek, John Loomer's Power Hour. I must be missing something because I don't know who half of these people are, but they must be pretty big time because you're big time, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So Sarah actually wanted to introduce herself in a certain way. And I think if you had a certain type of host for this session, they'd be like, no way. So I just would like you to greet the audience in the way that you promised.
Yeah, hello, bitches.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. So you can see how this session may go. So last but not least, on my far right, we actually have Cathryn, and she is the director of DigiFreelancer. Cathryn and I sort of chin-wagged in the speaker room, and, you know, I've got to say, it's kind of like peas in a pod, because we are both PPC people. These two people here, paid social through and through. So she's my ally on the desk today.
She's like BBC, like the TV station.
PPC.
Oh, I think.
PPC. Do you remember that thing that we're here to talk about?
Okay. I thought it was British broadcast television.
So she's helped grow brands that you may have heard of, like Hobbycraft, Wiggle, Fujifilm, Mazda, just to name a few. So we're really, really blessed to have such talented people on the panel today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Speakers are going to answer, then we'll break for some questions. So first of all, can you tell us things that search and social can share to benefit one another, and perhaps anything that we should absolutely avoid doing, categorically do not do when it comes to search and social? And I'll fire that to you first, Danielle.
This is probably going to be a common theme with the majority of my answers today, and that's because I believe that video is king. But I think you definitely need to be including video and even just visual, creative and visual content as part of your PPC, and not just relying on social to be able to deliver those assets. Obviously, they have different purposes. So paid social predominantly, we use it as like an introducing channel. So using it for brand awareness, where visuals are so important in being able to capture and keep the attention of new audiences. But if you're not then carrying that through to your paid search campaigns, and you're not actually making use of things like PMAX that is actually really effective at serving visual content, then you're kind of missing a trick. And it's not, I'm not an expert PPC. I don't think it's that difficult to dump some creative assets on your PMAX campaign.
Not the room.
Read the room. But also in terms of like display retargeting and all of that kind of stuff, it can work really effectively. So I would say in terms of things that work really well together, I'd say get your creative ducks in a row across both platforms. Make sure that you're taking the high-performing creative from both your organic and your paid social channels and testing them as part of your wider PPC strategy can be really, really effective.
Thank you. Cathryn, any thoughts? What do you think that search and social can share and benefit one another?
I think with PPC at the moment, there's a lot more targeting out there, so a lot more affinity targeting, in-market targeting, and you can start targeting by live events, and it's kind of now rivaling paid social, Facebook. So if you're testing stuff on Facebook, then should better test that on PPC as well, and it's just about sharing that information between the two platforms. You can just use it as a testing platform. It's absolutely important.
Sarah, any thoughts?
May I start, but what we should not do?
You can absolutely do what you bloody well like.
Never launch a campaign when you're bloody drunk or under the influence of drugs. That's one thing you shouldn't do. If you want to scale a company, you would need to do both. You cannot do, I see a company that only do Google, or they only do paid social, or they only do shares organic, and they say, we want to scale, we want to become big, but people exist outside of one channel. So often if you want to grow, you would need to have multiple touch points across different awareness spectrum. But you need to be mindful of the difference. I see a lot of people who do shares and then they try paid social and they fail because shares is demand fulfillment. Somebody say, I have an hormonal balance, and you say, I'm the hormone expert. I could treat you. I treat you many people. And then they go on social, and it's similar to going to a coffee shop. I said, I noticed this, you have a mustache. Do you have any chance of hormonal imbalance? Come to my clinic. And it's a good way to have somebody throw water or coffee into your face. Instead, you want to educate people. It's like, it's called one is demand fulfillment, one is demand generation. And it's like, how can you use storytelling, the second one, to create the interest and the awareness before you even dare to ask for a sale?
Okay. So I think in terms of, I think something that we discussed earlier as well is what's really important, and I think it was discussed at another meeting that I'd been to a few weeks ago, and we kind of talked about as well the interesting fact of how organic content can sometimes be the best content for paid, but it very, very rarely works the other way around. And I think to your point, it's because one of them is so much about building the emotion, building the story, connecting with people, whereas the other one's kind of like very transactional.
Correct.
So, yes, thank you. Okay, so this is, quite an open-ended question, so I thought it'd be fun. Ever-changing paid and paid social landscape. How do we stay on top of it? If at all.
Well, we talked about this earlier, didn't we?
Yeah.
The main way that I stay up to date with trends is just to be a user of the platform. So as much as I hate it when I can see people like just mindlessly scrolling through their phone, I am one of those people. That I do it in the privacy of my own home, so I don't feel guilty about it. But I think if you want to, with paid social in particular, if you want to keep up with trends move so fast in social now, especially when you think about how reactive platforms like TikTok are. New trends are happening all the time. If you're not a user of those platforms, you're always kind of going to be hearing it through the grapevine, or someone in the office is going to be like, oh, have you seen this new trend? You're already behind because you're having to hear it through someone else, and it's like Chinese whispers. So I think being a user of the platform can help you spot immediately what those trends are. And that's not to say that as a brand you need to jump on every single trend, because sometimes it's not going to work, it's not going to resonate with the community that you have on that particular platform, but it just helps you kind of stay abreast of what the landscape looks like in general, and then predicting as best you can what the longevity of that trend might look like, or whether it's just a passing fad that's not going to catch on.
So how do you feel about an undisclosed person of an undisclosed age that says, I don't use TikTok because I'm too old for it. And it's not me.
I wonder who you might be talking about. I mean, I was about to say I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but I think I ruffled some yesterday during my talk anyway, so I'm just going to say it. I think if you're working in paid social or organic social and you say, I categorically do not want to go on TikTok, you either need to kind of brand yourself as a specialist in Meta or a specialist in a platform you do use, or you need to find another job. Because you need to love it, right? If you work in paid social, I could chew your ear off about social for 24 hours a day because I love it. But like if you're in a job and you think like, oh God, I hate TikTok, then why are you doing it? Because you need that like spark to be able to kind of keep up to date and want to know what the next big thing is. And if you're not like that, then there's no shame in going, do you know what, TikTok's not for me, but I still love Instagram and I love Meta, so actually, let's go down that route, and that's going to be my speciality. I'm going to stay ahead of those trends, and I'm going to love it, and I'll leave TikTok to somebody else who lives and breathes that platform.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. Sarah, how do you stay ahead of the ever-changing landscape?
I was interviewed by a famous podcast. They asked me, what is something that works today that 11 months ago did not work? I was like, how about I tell you something that worked 50 years ago before social media even existed? And I gave an example. Health authority in the US, at some point they said, popcorn made with coconut oil had 37 milligram of saturated fat. Is that too much? Is that too little? Then the scientists said, how can we explain that? They said it's the same as an English breakfast, a burger, a steak, and a fries in one meal. The popcorn still has more saturated fat. Now, everybody got it. It became the first on so many newspaper, TV channel, etc. And when you're talking to people, I mean, trends come and go, but you're still talking to human, and persuasion principles are still there. So I don't really want to run after trend. I mean, it's like a small kitten that drank 5 cups of coffee running in every direction. You're never going to catch the kitten, but how about you think about things that worked 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 500 years ago, and 1,000 years ago, and continue using them.
Have you ever given a cat 5 cups of coffee, though? I think that's a guilty yes, actually. Cathryn, how do you stay ahead of changing trends? Paid social, PPC, what is it that you do to stay on top of things?
I think it's just being part of any kind of beta that comes around. It's really important, I think, to connect with LinkedIn. If you connect with some of the Google product liaison officers, they've got to tell you about some of the latest betas. I mean, I was involved many years ago where site links didn't exist. So I got on the beta and I was one of the first in the UK to do site links. And it's all, if you're just testing out the new things, then you're going to stay ahead. And it's about, if you just see that little nugget of information and then just research the hell out of it. That's how I stay on top. Just research all different sources. It doesn't necessarily have to be anyone you particularly follow. But if you just stay on top, and you've got to predict the next thing. So if you start thinking, okay, Netflix ads, that's now the next new things. And if you start predicting ahead of that, you just get on the platforms early. Get on the platforms as early as you can. Get those betas as possible.
Brilliant. I think what I would add to those 3 answers is also that you just can't assume anything. I think you, like, I said I wasn't going to say this, but I can't help it. Don't assume anything. So we won't talk about the undisclosed person that doesn't have TikTok, because it's definitely not me. But somebody that does have TikTok that is very out of maybe what I would deem as, you know, the persona of someone that has TikTok is my 50-year-old mum. And guys, she's TikTok famous. She is TikTok famous, and believe me, did not think those words would ever come out of my mouth, but she does have in excess of 70,000 followers. So what I would take from that is that you're never too old, no matter how old you think you are, to learn a new bit of tech, to learn a new platform. And actually, you know, it's quite self-sabotagey to even ever say something like, I just can't get it. Because ultimately, like what you were saying, you know, if you feel like that really has the power to enhance whatever you're doing, it is your job to do it. It is your job to understand it, however slow you might need to go. However much of a technophobe you feel like you are, listen, if my 50-year-old mum can do it, anybody can do it, for God's sake. I think that's kind of a big one. And I think if you want any recommendations from any of the panellists of people that they follow or publications that they get their updates from, please grab us at the end. There will be names that they will be happy to recommend. So I am going to open it up for the first time for any questions. So please be brave, wait for the microphone because we want to get your question. Any questions for any of the panellists, or any thoughts that you want to share, or anything that you want to challenge, or any questions at all?
Oh, don't all go at once.
Yeah. Don't fight for it. Yes, please.
Hello, is this on? We were recently in the really lucky position that our client's Meta account got hacked. Not through us, through in-house, which was they were a charity, and it's a really massive part of their income stream, and we just lost that bottom of the funnel activation tactic, which has been devastating for them. Meta have been as helpful as you would imagine in that situation, but I'd like to throw this at you as an interview question, I guess. How would you respond if one of your clients is relying on Meta, they've been hacked, and they've lost that bottom of the funnel activation? Go! And I'll write this down.
So I hope so. I'll start. We have experience with this. We have still, it's still ongoing, a client that was also hacked, and unfathomable amount of ad spend was spent. We were in a privileged position where we opened a new business manager account and we just started from scratch. We had a first-party data solution in place, so we were able to feed the algorithms quite quickly with first-party data. So the period of learning for Meta in a brand new business manager account was shorter than it would have been had we not had that data. Do you mean from like a brand reputation point of view, or purely just kind of they're losing that revenue because you've had to turn off that activity?
Just from a revenue perspective, lucky they've got some really strong brand advocates who were like, "Are you okay?" And it was really obviously not them. It was some MLM or nonsense.
Yeah, I would say, if you were in a position to just kind of start again really quickly, get your social team to open that new business manager account, get campaigns copied over and up and running as soon as possible, I would say that's probably the best bet. And then obviously having those conversations with the Facebook fraud team in the background to try and solve that immediate problem. If you have content that you are serving on Meta that would transfer across to YouTube Shorts, could they be put into a PMAX campaign? Could you use them as display? Would it also work on things like, Pinterest or any of those other visual platforms? I would say maybe try testing those, seeing whether you can make up ground on another platform that that your customers are. I would say the main thing would just be, if you can get Meta back up and running quickly, just run with it and try and do that. I don't know if that's even helpful, but the option is there. You can have two business managers running concurrently against each other.
Is there anything you want to add to that?
I would say don't put all your egg in one basket. If something works on Facebook, it might work on LinkedIn. I know people say LinkedIn is expensive, but I'm currently running ad where we're getting $3.50 per webinar opt-in in a B2B technical SEO niche. TikTok, okay, last year I talked about TikTok and why some people fail and succeed with it, but TikTok is interruption marketing the same way Facebook is, and you could leverage it. Even if you're not hacked, I give you two stories. A client, one client sells Photoshop courses, and I get an email from Facebook telling me, stop interfering in election. Another one, he's selling Spanish language courses, and the ad account got banned. And when I chat with Facebook support, there are people that are basically Facebook, yes, they're worth maybe 300 billion, but they they outsource the support to people who are abused, who are told, why didn't you reply to 500 query today? So those people are basically copy pasting, and I'm saying, hey, learning Spanish is nothing political, and the person just copy paste, we're protecting democracy, end of discussion, and shut the chat, right? And for a few months we couldn't run ads. So even if today you're not hacked, you have two-factor authentication, maybe tomorrow Facebook become more expensive. Maybe like it happened with iOS 14, basically now Facebook is showing your ad to garbage audience while hiking the price by 5. You should have the alternative. I mean, don't wait till it's too late to think about having more than one egg.
Cathryn, anything that you'd add to either of those?
In terms of the cost, absolutely. LinkedIn, Facebook, similar CPCs. It really is now. So yeah, keep trying different mediums, and as you say, don't put eggs in one basket. Keep going. Keep trying different things. Set new channels up. If one channel goes away, you've got another channel as a backup.
Anyone else got any problems they would like the experts to address?
The expert?
Yeah, the experts.
Hi panel. I don't know if this is a problem or anything like that, but we're using right now Facebook and TikTok, right, to run ads and everything. And I wanted your guys' opinion on some strategy that we started using. So let's say, for example, I'm trying to keep a 3+ hours in Facebook and on TikTok, right? So the ads that we run. And let's say, for example, after every 2-3 days or even a week, the ads that are performing lower than 3, we turn them off, we add new ones. So what, in your opinion, do you think, how many times should you turn off the ad and how long should you keep it running for? Because the main objective and the aim is to have ads running that are bringing in the best conversions, right? 3+. But anything else usually gets turned off, let's say within 2-3 days, if it's spending too much and there's nothing coming out of it. So just wanted your opinion on this. What do you think? What is the best time to run that? When you should turn it off? And we keep an eye on it daily. And just some.
Does anyone want to fight for that question? Anybody?
Sure, I'll go ahead.
Go.
I'll say managing ad is more of an art than a science. What do I mean? Let's say I go to Las Vegas and I'm gambling. If I have 1 million in my bank account and I lost everything, I could keep gambling. It's not a big deal, right? Now, if I'm down to my last $100 and I still need to buy an airline ticket back home, I'm going to stop gambling. So often I would have client, they say, you need to achieve, let's say, $7 CPA. If my average CPA now is $5, I have the flexibility to let things that are not running run longer to have more statistical significancy. On the other hand, if my average cost CPA is $20, then I would be more ruthless and I'm starting to kill things more quicker, even if I'm sacrificing the statistical significancy. Personally, I like to look at what's the average CPA for the campaign. Look at a multiple of 2 or 3. If I spend that and my cost is higher than the average, then I would pause it. Because imagine a scenario where you spend $10, right? Your average CPA is 5. You might kill it. Now you get 3 conversion, that's like $3, right? On the other hand, if you spend $50 and you still get 0 lead, spending an extra $5 or $2 or $3, there's no chance in hell the $50 is going to become $3. I mean, if you got 1 conversion, it's $50. If you got 2 conversion, that's still $25. If you got 3 conversion, that's still more expensive than your average cost per lead. So at the end of the day, it depends on your business objective, and you make a choice between statistical significancy and profitability or cost per action.
Cathryn, do you want to chime in?
I'm thinking also from an attribution point of view, if you're turning something off after a few days, then what's to say that isn't down the line having a long-term effect? You need to be keeping things running a little bit longer to work out, is that having an assisting value on another channel? what's the true value of that? And rather than just immediately turning it off just by the numbers, and thinking about the bigger picture in the attribution model.
I could not agree more. I think that you don't know purely by looking at ROAS what impact some of that creative might be having in terms of building brand awareness and pulling people in at the top of the funnel. So if your ads are purely focused on converting people that are already in market for the product that you're selling, then fine, you could look at ROAS to see how effective that is at converting. However, if your campaign, I mean, I don't know how your campaigns are set up, but if, for instance, you had a piece of creative that has a lower ROAS, but it's really good at building awareness at the top of the funnel, and you kill that ad, that's then, you know, potentially turning the tap off that's going to convert someone in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months' time. So similar to Cathryn, you don't know the wider impact that some of that creative might be having. So I'd say, depending on what the focus of that creative is, if it's to convert, yeah, fine, look at the ROAS and see how it's performing. But if it's more of a holistic campaign that is focusing on pouring people into the top of the funnel and then converting people later down the line, maybe looking at a slightly longer term view. And again, if you have the attribution solution in place to be able to measure how effective it is first click versus last click, you might notice that when you turn it off, you're blocking people from even getting to the bottom of the funnel, if that makes sense. So I would say just have a play around and see. But yeah, I think maybe 2 or 3 days might be a little bit quick to be making decisions on kind of how effective things are.
Yeah, I think all I would add to that as well is, you know, in this day and age, it's very rare that we'll just ever assess performance by 1 or 2 metrics, right? So you've got to look at the revenue share, you've got to look at the spend share, you've got to look at the reach share. So what else is it contributing? If it isn't hitting the mark in one area, is it actually hitting the mark in 3 other areas and actually then adds value to the entire campaign? Or is it falling short in multiple areas, therefore maybe justifies you turning it off for a period of time until you get into a place where you can afford to have it on or whatever. I think we've got time for one more question before we move back into the structured one. So yeah, sure. Wait for the microphone.
Probably too open-ended of a question. It's I wanted your take on interest-based targeting versus going broad on social, particularly Meta, because there's a lot of blogs, lots of experts talking about how interests on Meta have not been updated for years. So it's being, you're actually not targeting effectively anymore. But clients also like to see insights into, hey, who are you targeting? So there's always a mix and match, like how do you balance the 2 sides, and what can we take with courage and authenticity and say, hey, look, you might not see this particular insight, but it's because it's not relevant anymore. I don't know if, like I said, too open-ended probably.
I'm seeing more and more campaigns that broad targeting are doing really well. This said, I still see once in a while interest targeting work, maybe in things like real estate investment. It's impossible for a guru or expert to say interest targeting is always better, lookalike is always better, broad is always better. And when I'm asked that question, I like to say mustard or chocolate sauce. Which condiment make your food always better? How about you add the chocolate sauce to your French fry and add your mustard to the ice cream? You cannot generalize, and the only way you know, you have to campaign. One of them you try interest targeting, and the other one you don't try. But you cannot in the absolute say always interest targeting will be less good or always interest targeting is going to be better. And even the keyword interest targeting is a little bit misleading because it has the word interest, right? So let's say the interest shopping. Now you imagine in your head somebody passionate about shopping, wake up in the morning and say, I love shopping. It's the only reason I'm alive. And maybe I'm walking down the street of Brighton and I see so many homeless people and said, some people are shopping for Rolex watches that are worth 50,000, and on the other hand, people are looking for food in the trash. And now I made a post with the keyword shopping appeared in it. It doesn't mean I'm a shopaholic, right? Now there are keywords like where only somebody who's in the medical field or real estate investment or politics or engineering might, like composite material. I mean, if I'm not an engineer, when was the last time you saw a friend talk about composite material? So take everything regarding targeting with a grain of salt, but at the end of the day, make a test and let the number tell you what's working better or not.
Danielle, anything to add?
Not necessarily. I would say, yeah, just kind of test. There's no right or wrong, and ultimately it will depend on like what industry you're in, how niche that is. You know, I am an advocate for targeting being slightly broader, because often there's a demographic that you don't think would be interested in your product and they are. So I think we are somewhat past the phase of like hyper targeted campaigns where it's like this exact person and they have to have all 15 of these attributes, and if they don't, then we don't want the ad to show. But yeah, I would say, just to echo what Sarah said, like just testing it against, you know, a campaign that has exactly the same creative ad copy or whatever, and just the targeting is different. You can see if that's just your only variable, you can see how that works in terms of performance, you know, engagement, click-through rate, and then ultimately like sales and ROAS, and then just taking it from there. But that's not to say that what works for one campaign is necessarily always right for another client or another campaign that has a different purpose and a different goal.
There was I can't remember who it was now, because you're going to say, who was it, Charlie? There was someone talking yesterday, it might have even been your talk.
Probably me.
And they were talking about interest targeting on Meta, and they were saying how if you look at interest targeting, there are something like, if you input location, Algeria, yeah, it was you, wasn't it? What was it, 66,000 or 660,000?
The biggest employer in Algeria is Facebook with 660 employees. That's based on Facebook own data. Now I'm going to make a huge separation between LinkedIn and Facebook, because LinkedIn, people are looking for a job. They work at a company, the reputation of the company is at scale. So if somebody says, I'm a technical CEO expert, take them at their word. Then on the other hand, Facebook is based on behavior, and attributing data based on behavior are really hard. I mean, I had a client, at the time when getting followers on Facebook was still a thing, he said, oh my God, I'm going to target CEO, right? And then I check the profile, is somebody who put in their profile, I'm CEO at making love. He was hoping to target somebody who was a manager of a company with 50,000 employees, with 3 yachts and 20 million bank in the bank account. And basically he was reaching people who are broke, who didn't have $10 to their name. That's really difficult based on what, I have a perfect example. For a while I used to post on Facebook like really disgusting food pic. I have really strange sense of humor, and I thought it was funny, right? And some of my friends would say, Sarah, stop it, you disgust us, right? And one friend said, I would need to unfollow you. Now Facebook said, ooh, she engaged with those pics. And now Facebook is suggesting her groups like called retarded meals, where it's basically, a pickle covered in chocolate and so on. So she engaged with my post. Facebook thinks she loved it. It means nothing, right? So there is two extremes between LinkedIn from one side and behavior, like how do you do that at a huge scale? No, it's guessing, but then I say, imagine you go into a coffee shop, right? And you try to sell something. If you, let's say back pain, right? Probably in this room, maybe there is 20 or 10 of us who suffer from back pain if we're in a conference all day, right? Now, if you say, buy it right now, people couldn't care less. If I tell you the story of somebody last year who had back pain to the point they couldn't sleep, and how 10-minute massage under the table here made her sleep the best sleep of her life, people will be interested. So become less about who you target and more about what you say to them if you want to convert.
I don't know did that answer your question between the two answers? Yeah. If it didn't, we're going to be here afterwards, and Sarah would love to talk to you all day about that. So yeah, just hit her up. Hit her up. Fill her with a pint of lager and she'll be fine. Okay, so I'm just going to move back on to the questions just to get us back on track. So I've got here, is video truly king amongst all assets with the rise of channels like TikTok, or do image and text ads still have a place? So I'm going to start with you, Cathryn.
I think they still have a place. I think, video, absolutely important. But everything still has a place. For each type of campaign you're doing, different audience, different generations, and you've got to have all the different touch points because everyone has a different attention span. Whether, depending on what generation you're from, you can have a slightly different attention span, you can respond to different mediums. So I think text ads and image, they do have a bit of a place. And when you sort of do a campaign, you've got a certain amount of inventory to reach and different sizes and different images. So you need to cover all the bases. And without doing that, you're limiting your campaign if you're just focusing on video.
So you can't just go hell for leather on TikTok and hope for the best, basically. Any additions to that, Danielle? You're like, yes, video trumps everything.
So
done.
No.
Conversation over.
No, as much as I talk about video all the time, I do agree with Cathryn that you have to have everything, basically. Video is great. It works great at the top of funnel. It's great at inducing emotion. Emotion helps with long-term memory. Long-term memory helps with brand awareness. Brand awareness then helps with decreasing price sensitivity, brand recall, reputation, all of those things that if you're playing the long game is so important. It's hard to get that same amount of response with a text ad unless your copyright, unless your copy is mad. Or photographs can make you feel something, or images can make you feel something, but it's a bit different if I'm just seeing a product image with a few labels on it to have that same emotional response that's going to help your brand in the long term. But that's not to say that I'm not telling you that all you need to do is video all the time, because then all you're going to be doing is showing people films about your brand and they'll never buy anything. So I definitely agree that statics still have their place, and if any of you are using TikTok, you'll notice now that carousels are becoming far more frequent on your For You page. People are posting statics, you're watching slideshows. So even TikTok as a video-first platform is embracing static images. So everything kind of has its place. And text ads obviously have their place when people are searching for very specific things. I still use Google to search for stuff. So text ads definitely still have a place, and you need to be running them in order to capture the people that are searching directly for either your brand or the product that you're selling. So I love video, but yeah, you do need everything.
I think we were saying as well before that, not everybody has production budget to make big fancy pants videos. But Danielle, you were saying that actually you were using static imagery to throw together to create a video out of statics, and I think that's just something to be mindful of. You don't have to be,
Yeah, shout out to CapCut.
Yeah, you don't have to be some big spenny company spending thousands and thousands on videos. There's tools out there. Approach Danielle after this conversation for the tips, but there's tools out there that will allow you to create that video content from the statics that you've got, from the product shots that you've got. So there are ways to facilitate those videos if you feel again, you don't have the budget to stretch that far.
Yeah, iPhone cameras can film in 4K. You can buy a stabilizing gimbal off Amazon for 25 quid. If you're already doing an e-commerce shoot for product images or lifestyle images, just shove a phone in someone's hands and just get them to film stuff, and then you can make it look nice in the editing suite. You can learn. Adobe have great courses on color grading, on really basic video editing. there's loads of kind of, like CapCut being one of them, loads of these kind of like AI or templated video editing softwares that you can use. It's becoming more accessible to create that kind of content. And it's great if you want to just test how video can enhance your social strategy in particular. Because let's face it, if you're putting statics into PMax and Google's automatically generating those videos, they're not always the best.
Sarah, do you have a preference over cat flat lays or cat videos?
I have clients that when I send them an update, I share my screen and I share the ad manager and I say, this is the result. And they would reply, thank you very much, this is very useful. And I have clients who tell me, please send me a written report. I hate videos. So different people have different preferences. If you think you took, 1 liter of wine and now a video, you're passively consuming information, right? Or you might be at a conference like today and you're bored and you could take your phone and you could read text. So it's not one better than the other. Different people have different preferences, and you could have text that is super engaging. I mean, I'm running ad for a dating coach right now, and there are two friends arguing with each other. One said, you want to get married, just go out. And a friend of her replied, I'm out nonstop. How dare you tell me I'm not out? And basically, they left 10, on one comment, they left 10 comment arguing between themselves, and an extra person now joined in. But you just need to know how to write the copy. The problem is, like, most copy are badly done. It's written under 5 minutes. Many are using ChatGPT. But if you go interview your clients, spend 1 hour knowing what is an emotional story, and you turn it into an ad, whether it's video or text, it doesn't matter. It's people consume differently, but what matters is what you put in the video or what you put in the text. It's not video for the sake of. Actually, I have the perfect example. There is a TV, like a famous British YouTube channel, right? And they got an Italian chef to try some canned food from the UK that is passed as Italian. And in one case, a company brought like herbal food and added some oregano and said that's Italian. And when people said video is always the best, it's a case where people take a static image and they turn it into a GIF just because they heard video is what will get you in heaven. It's not the same as seeing a video where you see somebody's face, voice, body language, a demo of the product. It's making video for the sake of making a video.
Okay, my favourite question of the day. Unpopular opinions. Yes, who doesn't love a bit of controversy?
We need that like BBC Radio 1 jingle, don't we?
What is it? Go on.
I'm not.
Go on. Does anyone know it?
No.
Does anyone want the microphone?
Yeah.
Do you want the microphone so you can do that again? Okay. Yeah, Ruth, can we have the microphone, please? Thank you. That's your punishment for drinking on a school night.
Unpopular opinion. It's not quite that.
Yeah. Okay.
We can fix it in post.
Yeah. If we can just overlay unpopular opinion on that, that would be great. Right, okay. Who wants to start with their most unpopular opinion? Go on, hit me with some controversy.
Oh, you don't have to ask me twice. I'll explain what I mean after I've said this very bold statement, but 7-day last click ROAS should get in the bin. I know, I don't actually mean that literally. There's been a lot of focus on, a lot of marketers, rightly so, over the past however many years, months, generally focus on a last click ROAS attribution model. Generally, it's a 7-day window, which is great for shopping ads,
all the stuff I do.
Or all the stuff that Charlie's really good at. Great. So she bloody loves 7-day last click ROAS. But like I mentioned before, there is like a wider picture that as marketers we should really be looking at in terms of the wider effect that some of our brand building is doing. And it's difficult, but it's not impossible to look at the effect that social channels in particular are having as introducers that are starting the journey that then leads people to convert. And that's not something that you can report using a 7-day window and a last click model. So we have clients that use Northbeam, which is a fairly sophisticated attribution channel, which uses server-side first-party data to be able to map out like customer journey. So it'll give you essentially every single touch point that a customer goes through in order to make a purchase. And you can, I mean, if you want to talk to me about it, I will just pass you on to somebody else to go into the nitty-gritty. But you are able to see the effect that channels have at other parts of that consumer journey. So 7-day last click, absolutely, if you want to see what's closing people and getting them to buy, is absolutely the metric that you need to look at, but you shouldn't be using it necessarily to assess the effectiveness of every single campaign that you're running, because you may be, as I said before, turning something off at the start that's getting people to the point where they want to convert. So that is my unpopular opinion, and I will let these guys argue with me now for the next couple of minutes.
I don't think it's unpopular, apart from people with like me and Cathryn. Really, I think Sarah will be with you with that through and through. Cathryn, what's your unpopular opinion?
My unpopular opinion is: do we need a landing page? So
Interesting.
do we need that intro landing page? If we've got a white paper campaign, why not send it to the white paper? Now, I'm not talking about gated or ungated content here. If you've got that extra step, then you're just going to stop people getting those conversions. And then thinking about e-commerce, think about, you've got Instagram checkouts and Facebook shops. That's taking you straight to that product point of purchase. You don't necessarily need that product category page. You're eliminating that, and that will effectively, you get better conversions that way. So I personally don't think you need that intro landing page on those sort of channels anyway.
If you want to fight her on it, she'll be done in about 15 minutes. So take it out back. Sarah, come on, you've got to be bursting with some unpopular opinions.
Unpopular regarding marketing or in general?
Just well, why are you throwing in one of each just for the shits and gigs?
I mean, it's unpopular, but I think British food and the history of humanity, there is no cuisine with more flavor in the whole history of humanity. Find me one cuisine in the last 5,000 years that is as flavorful as British food. Come on, just one cuisine, I challenge you.
Oh, that would be none, actually. None.
Exactly.
None. Is that not because we don't technically have our own type of food, we just steal everyone else's? Potentially. And a marketing unpopular opinion, if you don't mind.
I think targeting is over-exaggerated, and you have company after company after company come to me and say, I think I have a targeting problem. And when I dig deeper, they have a content, they have an offer, they have a persuasion offer, not a targeting problem, because targeting is more and more broad, even when we thought we had hyper targeting, which was not that hyper if you dig deeper.
Okay. So basically, they don't have a targeting problem, their ads are just a bit shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I got that right. So we're going to open the floor up for some last questions. So we've got about 12 minutes left in the session. So let's ask some questions. If you've got problems that you want these guys to answer, if you just want to throw a question out to stump them, be wild, say whatever you like. Because ultimately, if you don't fill the space, I have to. And all I've really got to talk about is how much I love feed optimization, and I don't want to send anyone to sleep. So just throw out some questions, get a bit excited. We're literally nearly at the end, guys. There's going to be free drinks.
I mean, if someone has insomnia and it's 2 a.m, can you call them and talk about feed optimization?
I mean, if they've managed to get my number without me giving it to them, then yeah, crack on.
I have your number. I could give it around.
Right, we've got a question in the back. Yes, please.
So I work for a company that's in the financial services, and every time we try to post something on social, we always get fight from compliance because everything has to be FCA approved. I was just wondering if you have any creative ways to not get through compliance or FCA, but that we can work together rather than work against.
Post it on TikTok. No, I'm joking.
You stole my answer. I mean, I'm happy to chat with you because I could talk about this for ages. So if you want to catch up afterwards, then great. Get creative. with the type of content that you're creating. Obviously, with it being a financial service business, there's always going to be that element of like professionalism, I guess, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I would say, yeah, get creative, use another platform that's slightly less compliant, because you might find that actually you might not think that your audience is on TikTok, but as Charlie mentioned before, you can't really assume anything. So yeah, just like maybe be bold. I don't know a lot about Facebook compliance, admittedly, so I wouldn't know where to point you in terms of like getting the decisions overthrown and things like that. But definitely from a creative aspect, in terms of making your ads, you know, more suitable, or writing ad copy in a way where, you know, you're not making those like financial statements that tend to get red flagged, then yeah, I'm happy to chat a little bit more.
It's something I have experience with. So in the financial industry, you cannot promise, you cannot say you're going to get that return on investment, you're going to retire 20 years from now with that. But you could talk about the result you got your existing client. And I remember I worked with a financial planner in the US. I said, I cannot promise I'm going to help you get a scholarship with that value, because everybody's situation is different. But she could say, this is how I helped Jessica and her kid get a $10,000 scholarship. So make it right, left, and center. The story of people you already helped and the result you got. This you could talk about it. As long as it's true, as long as you're not making up the story, you could talk all day long about that. You could talk about misconception people have. You could talk about common question people have. There is a lot of way you could do it without promising. The problem people think about marketing is like, you're gonna be rich, etc. And sometimes maybe you invest in a certain way to mitigate the risk. Maybe you could explain it using analogy in a way that everybody understands.
Cathryn?
Yeah, in terms of the financial services verification on Google Ads as well, it's a thing at the moment. And you just have to try and adhere to all the practices and jump through all the hoops and try and get all that going. And yeah, it's tricky. And yeah, look at different channels and see what you can do. But you haven't got those restrictions in place. But ultimately, you want to be on those. You want to be on Google. You want to be on those channels, and you just have to jump through those hoops, I'm afraid.
I think Sarah actually covers this in a talk yesterday. Is again, just to reiterate what she just said then, is I think get creative with how you talk about the product, and rather than just be like, hey, we've got this service, buy it, you know, talk about the problem rather than the solution, especially when there's so much regulation around things like that. The client story, you know, the customer story, whatever it might be, like talk about the problem rather than the solution, because the solution sells itself, right? Like somebody that works for a financial services company that's pushing ads out isn't selling ice cream. Do you know what I mean? So if there's anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to give an example. So at my previous agency, we had a client that sold funeral plans.
I don't know if I like where this is going.
Which is obviously a financial plan, but also quite a sensitive issue to talk about on social media. Like no one wants to scroll through Facebook and read the word funeral. But so we kind of tried again to lay a story down and say, like, you know, this, if you have a funeral plan in place, these are all of the carefree things that you can do without worrying after your retirement, was basically how we spun it. So from a creative perspective, we had like people of retirement ages like on roller coasters and, you know, doing all of these fun things. So there was also a plan for expats. Again, it's a little morbid, but basically if you're an expat and unfortunately you die abroad, your body has to be flown on a plane back to the UK or back to your country of residence, and they had a specific plan for that, and they got a lot of kickback from Meta because of the way that the copy was phrased in terms of that particular plan and the finance and all of that kind of stuff around it. And we were also serving ads in Europe because it was catered towards expats, and we just told a story. We almost used like a case study, like Sarah mentioned, and actually told the story of someone who went through the process in a light-hearted way. as much as you can. And that was the way that we then avoided actually talking about the ins and outs of the financial plan, and actually just got people to understand the process.
The reason why I was giggling was because we were talking about some of the features that Meta has, and overlaying music is one of them. And we're talking about, a lot of traditional companies that are starting to use Meta because they're like, okay, everyone's doing it, so we kind of need to do it. I feel like that's a really good example of maybe a company that didn't use Meta a while ago. So as soon as you said funeral plan providers, I was thinking, God, Rita Ora, RIP, please God, don't put that.
No, yeah. So what Charley's mentioning is Meta has a toggle now when you're setting up campaigns that if your video has no audio, it will start testing out like royalty-free music of its own accord. So you might see one of your ads and go, we didn't approve that music. Where does that come from? And it's Meta basically using their like AI to trial things that it will think will make your ad more effective. So just be aware of that, especially if you're in a slightly more sensitive industry. You might want to just keep tabs on that.
So just check your ads for music is what we're saying. Yes, this lady from.
I've got a very campaign related question really. It's more of a would you rather question. So would you rather have a creative that's like low production quality which may or may not work, or a campaign which has high performing single image ads that guarantee conversions for paid socials?
Can I fire a question back at you? What's your campaign goal?
Lead generation and
Oh no.
Do you want to pass the question?
Yeah, I need some time to think.
No, pass it.
Well, so the question is low production video or a static image, right?
Yeah.
Why would you be afraid? I mean, if one of them gets your lead at £2, the other one at £10, does it matter which one is which one? I mean, are you doing ad for the sake of using one creative, or at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which one gets you which result as long? I mean, you'd be happy with either if the cost is good, right?
Yeah, it was basically more along the lines of the larger trend being, not the larger trend, basically the larger agreement being that video is king essentially. But sometimes this is something that we kind of face in our organization, that we are not super confident in the whole video production side. So I guess it's kind of the organization is a bit more hesitant in working with video when they know that we probably don't have the right resources to have good quality video content. So
I would say to that, look, everyone loves UGC, right? Everybody loves that, and that is most of the time. I'd say 80% of UGC is pretty low quality. It is. It makes it feel a little bit more real, a bit more natural, a bit more relatable. So I don't know that that actually a low quality, unless maybe it's a really, really, I suppose professional business that actually does have the money, they just don't want to funnel it into it. Not having the budget shouldn't be a reason to not do those videos, because look, you're only going to learn as you go. It's only going to get better, and actually there's a bunch of people that do the most random videos on Instagram and other channels that may get shared onto Instagram. Does anyone know who Jeffrey Walk is? Jeffrey Walk and his wife, they went viral during lockdown. It's basically an old guy and his wife, and he just started sharing videos of their life in lockdown. And this is a guy who's 80, 90 years old. So, again, the quality of those videos isn't amazing, but people love them because they're real and they're easy to digest. No one's looking at it going, God, he could have done a better job on that video, So I think it is very dependent on your situation. So, if you have got a video ad and a static ad, if you're a videography company, of course you are going to have preference over the video ad because it's displaying your product. But in any other situation, like Sarah said, let the data speak for itself. If the text ad or the video, the flat lay ad's working better, who's to say you have to chase down video just because video's trending? Like,
May I
do what
add
works.
something? So she said video is king, right? Is there kings today that is 90-year-old wearing a diaper and not being able to go to the bathroom alone? just because somebody is a king, it doesn't mean he's 20-year-old and in perfect health. For all we know, there are kings out there that cannot feed themselves because they're 90-year-old and severely sick and they lost their memory. Just because a king is a king, it doesn't mean you need to marry the king.
I would say I've thought of my answer now. Test it. Just test both.
We've got 1 minute. So.
Okay, I'm gonna make this really quick. Test it. It's very cheap on Meta in particular to be able to test something. You know, put a video in there, chuck a couple quid at it, take a look at some insights, decide whether or not like the engagement is there. In terms of it, you being worried about low production value, some brands are producing low production value content on purpose. I showed Charlie earlier the RSPB TikTok account. Shout out to anyone listening who might be working for RSPB. Your TikTok account is insane. They're purposefully making bad quality creative, but it is so fun. Bird of the week has my heart once a week. Bird of the week. So don't think because it's low quality that it's not going to work. There will be an audience for it. So just test it, throw a little bit of money at it, and that should hopefully then get you buy-in if you want to produce more high quality content from like your financial team or whatever.
Amazing. 4 seconds to spare. So, sorry, if you've got questions, harass these ladies after this panel. I will be running out of the door. Don't talk to me. But you can find me on LinkedIn. So, yeah, these ladies are great. If you can all give them a hand, I'd much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode of the Internet Marketing Podcast, produced by the team behind Brighton SEO, the world's largest specialist digital marketing conference covering SEO, PPC, paid social, web analytics and content marketing. If you want to find out more about us and the show, you can check out the website, internetmarketingpodcast.org. And if you've not already subscribed to the show, you should hit that subscribe button. And can I ask a favour, if you are subscribed and you're enjoying the show, can you leave us a review wherever you're watching or listening to the show? And if you want to get in touch, become a guest on the show, or just generally feedback about what we're doing, you can always email me. That's kelvin@brightonseo.com. So KELVIN@brightonseo.com. Or of course, you can contact me on social media. So at LinkedIn or Twitter, my usernames are Kelvin Newman. See you soon.